Greetings, fellow adventurers, and welcome to the Couple of Nerds podcast. I'm DnDWife, the creator of DnDWifeStories.com, and your co-host. Joining me is the man behind the screen, my brilliant dungeon master, and also my husband, Eguile. Say hi, Eguile.
Hey everyone, excited to be here sharing our nerdy adventures with all of you.
Absolutely. So what's Couple of Nerds all about? Well, we're diving into the realms of Extraeus, sharing our experiences, playing D&D in our apartment, and exploring the intricate tapestry of relationships both in and out of the game.
And we got some exciting segments for you all, from lore deep dives to crafting tips, artwork showcases, and relationship advice on and off the table. We've got a little bit of everything for every kind of adventurer.
So whether you're a seasoned adventurer or a tabletop newbie, we invite you to join us today. Tune in, relax, and enjoy the magic of Couple of Nerds. May your rolls be natural 20s and your adventures be legendary. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Couple of Nerds. I'm your host, DnDWife, and with me is my co-host and husband, Dungeon Master Eguile.
How's it going, everyone?
Welcome. Today's segment is a Traveler Chronicles segment, and what are we looking at today?
So, as always, our Traveler Chronicles, sometimes a tongue twister, is where we go into some of the scenes into our D&D campaign that's currently going on in the world of Extraeus.
The story progression.
Right, and so being that we don't have all the time in the world, we're not trying to share the entirety of our campaign. We kind of break it down to various scenes.
The important ones.
You're right, the various scenes that we think are really pivotal to the story, and kind of share our experience in not only creating the scene, but kind of how it went down for our players, as well as getting an opportunity to have our own personal on-the-ground reporter who kind of also gets a more first-hand kind of experience and lets us know of kind of the feelings of our travelers and our players in the current campaign.
Yeah, it gives us sort of a temperature gauge as to how everyone's feeling.
Right, and so today we're looking at a pretty important scene, as this is when the travelers, our D&D group, arrived first in the Holy Lands of the Mirren, which is known as Arnknoka. So this was a big pivotal moment because of the idea of, it was kind of the first major town.
Yeah, you know, the first city is always super important to not only the players, but the DM too, to present it right.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to be discussing today not only the creation of Arnknoka, but we're also going to be having a live interview with our in-game reporter, Luna, and our guest, Tobias Shadowmane. And we're also going to have a really deep dive into the scene of the travelers' arrival, their interactions, and how they were feeling coming upon this wonderful fabled city.
Yeah, and so really when it came to, you know, the inspiration behind this, we were kind of looking for something unique because obviously as we set the stage for our world and our universe, the Mirren are kind of set back a bit, you know, as the kind of the intro to our story. They had only recently entered like the Bronze Age.
Yeah, it's really just because they're super steeped in a sort of very tribal nature. They appreciate being one with nature, so technology isn't as high on the importance scale, or even magic. It's really just commune, be yourself in the land, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and the big thing too is that because of like the mortality of the Mirrens, like none of them are a super long-lived race.
Not really, yeah.
So for them, the kind of time between the establishment and the creation of this holy city, a lot has happened to them to create kind of these traditions that have now been established in the current era that the campaign's occurring in, because you know, Arnknoka is the city that is kind of really steeped in history and tradition because it is the spiritual heart of the Mirren. It's kind of the connecting factor to all of them. Like, essentially, they're all different. They all are very unique in their own right, but this is the one place where they come together to be one unified species.
Yeah. So can we go a little bit into like what was the inspiration behind the city's creation?
I kind of, given the fact that like all the different Mirren have a lot of their own unique cultural backgrounds, and some of the Mirren, especially like the lion folk, those were built by the player who operates Tobias, and he kind of helped build a lot of the culture to start. But that kind of shows, though, because there's a difference of these different races, that there can be a plethora of different cultures. So whereas the lion folk have kind of this more kind of militaristic kind of feel with training and respect and are kind of divided themselves, the kind of like Kenku worship an entirely different system, more of propping up one above all else. So the city needed to kind of represent these different kind of cultures all coming together somewhat peacefully. And so that's why we kind of came up with the idea of these kind of different concentric circles that kind of expand out from this center area, being that this center point is the kind of focusing point for the entire Mirren. And it's kind of more based on kind of ancient tribal civilizations, as well as a little bit of like mythical, like Avalon and kind of Arthurian legend, as there is this kind of stone almost shaped like a lightning, like it had been thrown into the ground. And this is the eternal rock. And so this is worshipped by the Mirren as a symbol of their unity. It's, in fact, it's kind of
the center, right?
Right. It's in the very center of Arnknoka. It's kind of everything was built over time around this stone. And this stone represents their unity because it has all of their various handprints in paint across the stone, kind of representing them all coming together. And so it's all centered around that. And then every circle kind of comes out as a ring. And each ring kind of represents a different section or culture of the Mirren. So you might see a ring that's more adapted for the Elefolk, that has kind of more kind of shade and designed to be more of the regular comforts of home because they aren't very adaptable to the wilderness. But as you get further out, it becomes more wildlife, more of tents and kind of little huts and villages that are outside of the tribes that are more used to kind of the outdoor nomadic living and don't really have a city life in their own. Because the entire idea around this is that way all these cultures not only have a reason to come together, but this place also represents a piece of them as well. So that way it's not just, okay, this is one kind of bland creation that we kind of meld together. No, it's each piece represents the strength of the Mirren coming together as the circles are and kind of enforce and build around themselves. And so I wanted the city to represent that kind of mentality amongst the Mirren.
Yeah, sort of equal footing for everybody, where everyone's safe and can sort of because that's the big thing. If you're going to have kind of these grand holy cities, you kind of have a choice of like the kind of very claustrophobic, tight, interconnected buildings, walls everywhere.
I wanted it because obviously the Mirren, one, are also large, strange, and unique creatures, that it obviously needed to be much more sprawling in this large area. And that's why Arnknoka itself, though may not have what would be like a population of a giant town of like Baldur's Gate or something, it's still just as quite large expansive because of how expansive the rings get.
Wow. At least what I remember from first just being described as we entered.
Right, it's been a while.
It was awe-inspiring, especially sort of the way to Arnknoka at the entrance of the forest. I thought was wonderful as well, that you get that sense of tranquility, but also like hushed danger because you're entering a holy land, so you feel the pressure of that.
Yeah, and then, that's that whole thing, too, amongst tradition, is like this idea that, as the players are told, like, no blood is to be spilled. Like, no one is to kill anyone. And it's just given as, like, a tradition thing, but it's also kind of projected as, like, well, what would happen? Because it is such a, as they interact with some of the other Mirren aren't really too keen on peaceful solutions and are more than willing to harm, but it seems like everyone, when they're in this zone, it's just the idea of doing anything to contradict that peace is just unheard of. Yeah.
Well, nobody wants to break that fragile peace because it is very fragile. If one steps out of line, chaos could break out.
Yeah, and then that's also like as it's already grown, because like I was saying, because of their mortality, like they have small changes to other races what would be, but to them it's big steps. So as of now, the city's actually already seen drastic changes from what the players saw between the inner and outer circles of Arnknoka. Whereas it used to be kind of this pie wedge. I mean, the only way I can look at it is like Trivial Pursuit, where each of the wedges represented each of the actual tribes going from the center out. But now, in the current era, each of the rings represents different tribes moving their way out.
Interesting.
And with the inner tribes, or the kind of higher up Mirren, being closer to the stone, and the lesser Mirren being relegated to the outside points from where they're at as a way of trying to reestablish the tribe after the kind of betrayal by the Leonin folk, or the lion folk champion.
Okay, so this betrayal of sorts has caused a rift, sort of, so to speak, to happen. It's interesting how they've separated everything. It's so interesting that it isn't just a city. It's a reflection of what the people believe. It's a reflection of their values, their beliefs. And so it changes with the change of those beliefs as well. I appreciate that.
Right, yeah. It shows that because also the Mirren are such, like, a lot of them are these nomadic tribes, it also shows just how easy it is also for the Mirren to change as a people because they don't have also these large numbers. So when something does impact them, it can have such a huge impact that within the next generation, the entirety of the Mirren social structure could change.
Yeah. It's sad, though, to me, at least, that, it's interesting that the Ella folk, as they took over, changed sort of the dynamic. So they're closer to get, not just together, but like in the circle as well, because they're rings now that they occupy. They're all closer, whereas all the other Mirren are super spread out the farther out they get from each other.
Where the initial idea was everyone has access to the rock, everyone is connected from it. It's now switched over to now you have to get through these other Mirren in order to get to that, which we might see have further implications down the line. But really the biggest thing is that even though this is happening, it doesn't change the fact that the original building design, so there were kind of opportunities that were both seen and not seen during the player's first interactions with Arnknoka, where there were still kind of designs that showed the kind of different wedges that were supposed to exist through the different dynamics of kind of the artistry, the different totems and stuff that kind of showed various types of races, which was just interpreted as, it's just the art, but it actually was showing the kind of original setup for how the rings were supposed to be viewed.
Where everything was a little more equal. Yeah. More like a round table, so to speak.
Right, and so a lot of that was the stage, but as we've said with Extraeus, and what makes it such a unique campaign is that we very much kind of build as we go, and it's kind of this evolving tapestry, right? So we kind of set the ground roots for it, but as the travelers interacted and spent the next couple of days in Arnknoka, that's really, I think, when we saw things being shaped. And that's really when I think Arnknoka kind of started building itself as not only just this important place, but this is not only an important place, but this is a place that needs to be protected.
Absolutely. There was a lot that we noticed right off the bat, and we'll go more into that later.
When we get down to
deep dive.
We're actually looking at the scene, we'll definitely see how that kind of pans out.
Oh, yeah. But we're going to head over to our on-the-ground reporter, Luna, to get our live feed to see what is going on in the new city of Arnknoka.
Yeah, hopefully we won't have any issues with that troublemaker again. That was a little interesting.
I don't think she appreciated the feed being hijacked like that. That was strange.
All right, well, Luna, you there?
Hello? Greetings from Arnknoka. I'm here with Tobias, who's been exploring the city and learning about its rich history and culture. Hello, Tobias. Thank you for joining me today.
Always a pleasure, Luna.
Thank you. I know we've been traveling together for a bit here, a week or so, and we've gotten to know each other a little bit. I love your cooking, by the way. It's fantastic.
Appreciate it. Passed down from my mother, these recipes.
Yes, and I love the fact that you're always gathering your own personal fresh ingredients for the meals. I love it. So, what we're really here for is to explore the rich history of Arnknoka. I want to know more about the city, its significance to its people, what it means to you personally as well. Can you tell us a bit about Arnknoka itself?
Oh, it's a very ancient city. The first one that was ever settled by all of us together. Well, not me, but our past.
Your ancestors.
Yes. Oh. And what it represents is, unity between the races and us all coming together as one, as it should be.
Oh, that's quite lovely. I love that sentiment, just because nobody should be on unequal footing, especially in a city that's purported to be for everyone,
Yes, it's amazing. I mean, some people aren't as welcoming. But that's everywhere.
Oh, yes, I understand. I've noticed a little bit of animosity towards yourself. Is there a reason behind that?
There are a few reasons, but mainly They just don't like us lion folk.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well, that's good to know. I suppose I'll be on my best behavior to avoid any trouble. But can you tell us a bit about the significance of the city to the people? I noticed the sort of sacred stone in the center.
Yes, the city was founded around it when it was first discovered, and this was when we first marked peace and unity between all the races. And we set up around the stone, and it kept growing out from there, and now it's what you see here.
Oh, so it wasn't at first as vast as this. It grew.
No, yes, it grew. I believe in the beginning they came here to make peace at the stone, and then that kind of just sprayed out from there.
Oh, that's lovely. They came and then they stayed. They liked it so much.
Yes.
I quite like that a lot. And then, as a last little tidbit, I'd like to know what the city means to you personally. With everyone being so sort of cross with you, it seems like you possibly might not have a lot of love for the city or being around a lot of your own people. But does it have any personal meaning to you?
To me, it means hope that, we can come together. We've done it before, and even now when we're seeming to be pushed apart from each other, we can do it.
Oh, I absolutely appreciate that sentiment. That's quite lovely. It's good to hear that you haven't lost hope. And, despite how everyone treats you, I've gotten to know you this last week, and I think you're quite a good person. You've been feeding us free of charge. You allowed us to sort of tag along with you for the journey, providing care.
I charged the lizard.
Oh, well, you didn't charge me, so I'm quite grateful at least.
He paid for you guys. It was nice.
Oh, I must thank him then, I guess. Well, thank you.
Don't worry about it. He wasn't going to.
Oh, no worries. Well, I'm glad you got your bit of it. But as a last little sentiment, I'd like to know how the locals perceive you, especially as a sort of traveling cook as you've become.
Well, it's like you said before, they don't really like me as much, but once they start, smelling my cooking and having a bit of it, it warms their heart. I've always heard the fastest way to somebody's heart is through their stomach.
Oh, yes, that is a popular sentiment. And is there a special place in the city that sort of, upholds the culinary arts?
No, you can find it throughout the entirety of the city. There's stands and stalls everywhere selling all types of unique cuisines and flavors.
Oh, nice. So we just have to visit all the rings to find them.
Try it all.
Oh, that's wonderful. I look forward to tasting all the food. Thank you so much. That's a great bit of information. And thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. But I'm going to move on now to your player and see what he has to say about this situation.
Alrighty. You have a good one.
Thank you so much. Have a good night. Welcome, Richard. I really appreciate having you here for another interview. And I would just like to talk to you a little bit about how you feel about the city of Arnknoka. I know it's a little bit of your past, a little bit of your ancestry. And I'd like to get your perspective as the player on how it felt to sort of build parts of it.
It's felt great so far to really feel like I'm a part of the world and its makeup and how it's coming along. And I feel like it's a really weird feeling because I feel like I get to throw out these ideas that are just vague ramblings in my head, and then the DM takes them and breathes life into them and then makes them feel more real and fleshed out. And I give myself pats on the back because it makes me feel like I'm doing actual work.
Well, that's so good. I'm glad that you're getting what you're expecting out of this. That's always the goal, right? To just get what you're looking for in the story, which is fun.
I mean, I'm not looking for anything in the story other than the story. So I just love seeing how it all comes about, like, organically and what happens. And I'm always excited to see what happens next.
Nice. That is a good way to approach it. I really do appreciate that. But I'd also like to talk a little bit about how it feels for you to be the only one from this continent. The rest of us are from elsewhere.
It's been fun, but I have found myself sometimes where I'm like, oh, I should have the answers for this, or like what's happening. But Tobias is fairly low intelligence, so it helps sometimes that he doesn't know and I don't know because the history is so bad there.
He's learning though. He's learning. He's trying. He's trying his best. And it's really funny to hear you say that. But is there any sort of like home court advantage that you feel like you have where the rest of us maybe don't quite have a grasp on?
Not exactly. In an odd way, it's kind of nice that so many people are prejudiced against my character because it keeps me from just really easily like kind of leaning on that I have history here and whatnot. That it makes me kind of have to. I feel like I'm starting fresh a lot.
It helps build your story at least. That's lovely. And right now you're the only Mirren in our group. How does that feel being the only one?
Doesn't feel too different. Although I mean, Tobias himself traveled alone for a while, so I think it kind of is almost the same thing where he's around people. He's just the only one of him still.
True. When you've traveled in solitude for such a long time, it gets difficult to not feel like you're just doing a bit of the same, even if there's people around.
Lion folk in a caravan full of Ella folk. So again, it was just they're all Mirren, but he's still the outsider of it all.
Yes, that's I am personally a little sad about that because you're a lovely person, or at least Tobias is. But not only are you the only Mirren, but you're also one of the veteran players on the table, and I'd like to know a little bit about how that feels, being a sort of mentor to some of the newbies on board.
Oddly, it makes me feel like I definitely have come along more because before they joined, I still felt like I was just as green as I've been from the start. But talking to them and helping, it helps me see I actually do have a hang of this and I know what I'm doing. And, it's almost like raises my confidence because now I have to help somebody and it makes it easier to do everything. You know what I mean? Yeah,
it feels good to know you have the answer and can provide it really easily.
I feel like it's easy to get out of the panic mode once you have to start being a parent or helping others.
Helping everyone,
Yeah, I could, if I was by myself, I'm sure I'd be lost as ever, but having somebody there that I need to help gives me the confidence.
Gives you center, gives you focus. I love that. And as a last sort of question here, is there any advice that you would give fellow players in building their characters' culture in their games if they're tasked with such a situation?
Find something you're interested in, whether it be for just the appearance of it, or maybe I kind of did one where I just wanted to go for something different and unique that I didn't think we had at the table or experienced before. For instance, I had been looking at architecture and I had really just liked the appearance of Moroccan architecture, and I started thinking of a town and village around that, and that kind of influenced then the naming of the city. I kind of just rolled around sounds until something sounded a little bit more Middle Eastern, and I liked the sound of it. And I tried Googling, make sure that there was no other place that had that name already. And then I take something like that as a good starting point, and then kind of build off of it, let it fractal out from there, and shape where I'm going already, and maybe tweak things to fit more into that narrative and perspective, and then. Just build onto it. There's never too much.
Absolutely. And I quite love that the structures that you did choose fit in very well with the aesthetic of the Mirren being part of the land and being really connected to that. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. And we're going to hand it back to our hosts. Thank you so much, couple of nerds. Take it away. Thank you so much, Luna, for that in-depth analysis of, how it feels to be an inhabitant of the city of Arnknoka. I really appreciated that. But now we're going to go, into the deep dive, get the first impressions and set the scene for where we arrived.
Right. So the big thing is during this time that they've been traveling with the caravan, it's been kind of one directional. They've been kind of traveling up a river, and it's been very standard travel. Yeah. But it was when they arrived at this forest that surrounds the clearing, they're told, hey, follow this path, do not step off the path and just go straight. And it kind of led to this ominous of where are we going? I remember a lot of you guys kind of looking at me okay, hold on a second, this is looking like we're heading into a battle. We're not heading to a holy land. Peace be with you. And so after they get through, and they travel for a good day and a half through this forest, so basically a day and a half's worth of travel of no sunlight, thick canopy, only to then unveil this kind of vast marsh of greenlands and kind of just greenery and animals and just life everywhere in this huge, probably like 2 or 3 mile circumference circle worth of territory that this forest completely encompasses. But the strange thing is that the forest is in a perfect circle around the lands itself. So the forest itself starts the first circle.
Yep. And in particular, it's in a circle around the sacred rock.
Exactly. And so the travelers open up to kind of this scene of being almost in darkness for a day and a half to this now bright, peaceful lands. And at the point before this, they'd seen nothing but kind of barren, undeveloped areas. The poor
grassland.
The poor inventor is starving for parts because nobody knows what technology is. But this was the first time where it actually showed that there was this kind of power to the Mirren. It was, okay, they're not just these kind of backwater tribes that barely know how to make a sword. No, they have their own kind of life and structure.
Yeah.
And so by opening up to this, and as far as they are, they actually have the vision of these circles that kind of go out across, not realizing that some of these circles towards the middle get to be about a mile long in circumference. So from their perspective, it looks like this kind of targeted bullseye to something in the middle that they can't quite see yet.
It's an eye again.
Right? I know. We have a lot of the eye iconography.
Yeah.
So what it is it's just, it's not just this backdrop that they're walking in. It's this whole like culmination of their travel. And as they're going, they're seeing now all these different species they had not seen yet. And also in the beginning of the story, this is the first time a lot of these species are being unveiled to you guys.
Speaking as when we first arrived, like seeing it in my head while we were playing was amazing, because I truly felt that while we were on the path, we were walking on sacred ground, and we could sense like that there was danger, but only danger if we did something against the rules.
Right, yeah.
It didn't feel like they were trying to get us.
Which is like both kind of like the DM way of being like, hey, okay, well, hopefully in this town that nothing's going to necessarily try to kill you necessarily, as a way of also creating kind of a not this worry for my very new players to think that, if I make the wrong turn, something's just going to smash me and it's game over.
Yeah, so it really set the tone.
Right, so that and that's the whole idea of it, is that it is this kind of test of strength, but not a test of bloodshed, because that doesn't really get them anywhere. They're here for peace, but they also still have their own egos and their own kind of way.
And contests happen,
Right, and we see that as we go in, and that's that whole thing, as, the party really, at this point, had only seen kind of bits and pieces of Tobias really suffering any kind of, discrimination. But really, this was where it set home, as through the first half of their arrival, I believe, like, none of the NPCs even acknowledge his existence. And I think the bigger thing, too, was a lot of the players were kind of trying to make perception checks and investigations to see if there were any other lion folk around, because they're like, oh, maybe this is going to be where Tobias was. And it ran down to where it was really just Tobias as being one of the few lion folk wandering through the town. And so that whole time he's also just being blatantly ignored, being charged money that no one else seems to have to pay,
like exorbitant amounts.
And I think the sad thing, and what really set it home, and which was great by Richard, is that he really played Tobias as just going along with it. Tobias didn't complain when he had to pay extra. He paid it. He just kind of, anytime the party kind of started to question things, he would just, hey, it's how it is. This is what we do, but I don't stop. I, keep serving food. They can be as racist as they want. They can hate me as they want, but they love my cooking. And I think that really kind of set that, there is this dynamic, but then they're still a people. And I think as we progress more in the story, I think a lot more of that lore is going to come out. And I think that's going to really help kind of also set Tobias on his path on what he's going to do as a member of that kind of, and being a shunned member of that tribe.
Yeah, it was interesting, because at first we just thought that it was just because the Leonin and the Elefolk maybe didn't get along.
Yeah, I was kind of trying to obfuscate that as much as possible.
Maybe they've got like a bad like predator-prey vibe going on or something. But then we entered the city, and it really became apparent that it was kind of everyone who just wasn't speaking to Tobias at all. But it really really creates this like rich sense of history for Tobias. It makes him like a real person in the world, and I just love seeing that grow in the story as well.
And I think that was kind of the unique thing that started with that player, is that they themselves didn't have to share a lot about their personal history, because here we are in like their character's holy site.
Yeah.
And so the site itself was telling a story for Tobias, whereas Richard obviously didn't know everything that's going on as a player.
True.
So it really kind of helped kind of cement that kind of feeling. But I mean, not only that, but as with most times, the party finally arrives to like, you know, the area where you can kind of let them off the leash for a moment and kind of explore. I think the really interesting part about this scene, and why we thought it was important too, was that this really started to show the different groups that were developing amongst the travelers.
It really did. You know, at least for myself, throughout the entire sort of travel to Arnknoka, Luna had gotten really close to Tobias because they...
Yeah, you kind of formed a team. You at that point had started helping him cook and prep and do stuff.
And then after the fight, we saw that we both did magic, so that was another sort of bonding moment for us, and we just kind of stuck it out.
Yeah, and then we saw, you know, more mechanics around Bogbean and Bricky trying to kind of figure out their situation, which I thought was interesting. And we still kind of had moments with Miguel.
Yeah.
You know, them having to deal with him, but this was another opportunity for Miguel to escape.
Yeah.
And so there's another way where Miguel had kind of escaped from the party once more, still kind of not knowing what to do after his, you know, his tail had been bitten off.
Oh, I know.
But then we also started seeing other developments with like Drexla and Captain V, where we kind of saw them kind of realizing they kind of had similar ideas, and kind of the take no for, you know, no answer.
Yeah.
And, you know, borrowing things, as they like to refer to it, is very acceptable to the two of them.
Well, they weren't using it at the
So
time.
I think it created that cool thing where the party also started to see kind of where they could kind of align themselves.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is that, you know, outside the table, metagaming a little bit, this was kind of made where, you know, the veterans kind of all played with a rookie to kind of create that balance. But the crazy thing I feel like is that it wasn't very forced, as it just kind of became natural of who kind of paired with who without even realizing it. And I think Arnknoka really started to show that. It wasn't like this forced thing of like, okay, kid, I'm your trainer, you got to follow me, listen to me. It was more of just, hey, our stories uniquely bond. I kind of like this. Like, let's roll with this plot line. Let's go with this story. You know, and that'll obviously be future scenes, you know, when, you know, that we'll definitely go into more. That'll show kind of that kind of creation that we have for Extraeus, where, you know, the bonds where even though we're trying to make it that way, it end up just naturally becomes that.
Yeah, it's interesting to see because we all largely built our characters separately. Like, we came together for session 0 for the basic things, but honestly, like the personalities and the backstories were really kind of left to ourselves in the DM. So to see them kind of line up in these interesting ways and unique connections was so fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, most of the time it was assumed that I had done something to make that happen, but really a lot of it was just D&D happenstance,
right? Kind of how it just worked out, which is crazy.
But I know as you as a player, I mean, I know there's always kind of that worry of like balancing like freedom and too much freedom.
Yeah, you know, there's such a thing as too much freedom because you don't want to go completely off the wall, but it was really nice to finally feel like a sense of safety in the world, and we could just kind of let loose. That was a really nice freedom we hadn't felt, especially after the battle.
Yeah, and I think this was like kind of the first opportunity to start seeing other kind of abilities being used, you know, persuasion. This was when we really started to see Drexla's haggling ability.
Yeah, charisma coming into play.
And so then it was like, oh, okay, now we kind of figure it out how this story is going to play, because it really kind of showed the mechanics where, you know, you guys really were given nothing.
Yeah.
And some of you literally nothing.
Almost, yeah.
And so it really, in the early parts of the game, and we're going to, you know, as we discussed it, you guys really struggled on the financing part. You know, and there's a few of you that had coin, as we learned, you know, from Tobias. There was a little benefactor helping out reluctantly. But it is that thing where it really showed that you guys had to pool your skills together in order to get through. Like, nobody was going to be like the one person who hoards all the cash and is like, I'll give you some. It was like, no, we're going to have to bound together just to get scraps.
Yeah, because everything is expensive. We are out-of-towners. So the prices are just a little higher for us.
Right. And the nice thing, and like for me as a DM, it was really that start. It was like, it was the first major city town that I had built for this campaign. And so it's like, okay, now I get to set you guys off and let you guys see kind of what, and go explore, go find the little nooks and crannies and see what happens. And the nice thing is you guys spent a good amount of time there to allow you to do
roaming, exploring. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah.
But today we've journeyed, we've explored the creation of Arnknoka. We've heard the first-hand experiences of our reporter Luna and Tobias and relived the amazing entrance that we had to the first city. I just loved it. It was so impactful and poignant.
Right, because this is always a pivotal moment in D&D campaigns. It's like kind of that first big city. Now, as we go on and we tell a few more of these stories, we'll learn that this isn't their permanent residence by any shape or form. But we will get more into that on the next Travelers Chronicles. But as always, we love your reviews, your feedback. All of that means the world to us. It helps us continue to bring every bit of content that we can to you and make sure that we're at least somewhat on the right page.
Right.
So we accept any and all critiques. Let us know. Shout it out. Either on YouTube or any of streaming platforms you can reach us at.
Remember to like, review, and subscribe. We love hearing from you guys. And if you really want to join the conversation, you can always join the Couple of Nerds Discord community that we have going on. It is awesome. You get all the latest content on there. Photos, pictures, works in progress, everything you could possibly think of. And if you have any questions, we are always available to answer.
Yeah, and a lot of the travelers are on there quite often. So if you have a question for anybody specific, they're all titled there. Just ask them any questions.
Yep. You might even catch some of us live streaming. But thank you so much. Have a good night.
Have a great one, everyone.
And that concludes today's journey through the realm of Couple of Nerds. We hope you had a blast exploring the intricate world of Extraeus. Don't miss out on the visual extravaganza over at our YouTube page at Couple of Nerds Podcast. It's where the magic comes to life with exclusive video segments, art previews, and a peek behind the curtain.
Dive deeper into our adventures by visiting DnDWifeStories.com, your haven for all our podcast transcripts and a treasure trove of content dedicated to the captivating universe of Extraeus.
Your unwavering support is our greatest treasure. Take a moment to weave your thoughts into a review and hit that subscribe button for an enchanting journey with Couple of Nerds.
Join us beyond the podcast in the Extraeus Project Discord. Connect with us, the creators, and even the travelers themselves. Witness the magic unfold in live drawing streams, game alongside us, and step into our digital tavern, the Bard's Haven. Share your stories and characters with fellow adventurers. Visit DnDWifeStories.com for the link to join our vibrant community.
Stay tuned for more tales, more laughs, and more insight into the world of tabletop gaming. Until then, may your dice be kind, your campaigns epic, and your adventures legendary.